It finally happened. The Chiefs defense balled out versus a good offense, and maybe not so much finally, because we're going to talk about it in a little bit. The Chiefs defense has done something very interesting this year. We'll cover that and more in this video. This is RGR Football Gridiron Lines. Gary McKenzie here, back with you for another episode. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. All right, before we start talking about the good news I've got to share, I want to start with a fan shout out, and I really liked this message from Harry Mills. Awesome comment. Thank you, Harry, for your contribution to this channel. So, speaking of the defense, if these rookies are going to round out their respective games, then they're going to get exposed numerous times in situations for which they're not yet fully prepared. They're preparing and trying to win at the same time. It should look ugly. It's not a sure thing that'll gel before the end. There's upside to this unit that they didn't have last year. They're bigger, more physical, and more athletic, but they're a work in progress. If they beast in January, Spags will be the toast of the town. I couldn't have said that better myself. I think that sums up a lot of things that have gone on with the Chiefs defense so far this year. They're young, they're going to take their bumps, and they're working to get better so that way they can be ready for the postseason. Harry adds, if they lose embarrassingly in the playoffs, everyone's going to blame the defense, and then people are going to want Steve Spagnuolo's head. But if the offense moves the ball and scores in all four quarters, I think the defense will get enough stops. I could not have said that better. All of that was wonderful. And I think that this really kind of encapsulates a lot of the things I've been trying to say and prepare for this season when the Chiefs head into the playoffs. The defense, if they're supported by the offense, if they play well in the playoffs, this team is a lock to win the Super Bowl, in my opinion. And so, Harry, really appreciate your comment. This is a wonderful addition. I really enjoyed reading this, and I think you just hit the nail right on the head. So thank you once again, Harry. Looking at the Chiefs' rolling points per game defense average so far this year, the points per game allowed, and we look at this every week. You want to see this line drop. And last week's game versus the Seahawks was an awesome step in the right direction. So starting in week 5, the Chiefs were giving up about 25 points per game. Now they're down to about 22 in week 15. So once again, we're seeing Spagnuolo's defense continue to get better throughout the year. This is a really good sign. And last week's game versus the Seahawks was the watershed moment, in my opinion, where this defense has really prepared itself and looked primed for a playoff push. This is the moment I have been waiting for from this defense for a long time. And it finally happened. Week 15 versus the Seahawks, they only gave up 10 points. The defense looked incredible. They tried some different things schematically. They used L'Jarius Sneed to hang around DK Metcalf, and that worked really well throughout the game. It was a good strategy by Spagnuolo and the defense. But there's something very interesting happening with this Chiefs defense. And I'm going to break it down into two little sections here. Their first is how the Chiefs have fared versus offensive opponents who are in the bottom half of the NFL. This is excluding a couple games where backups were starting, but they've played bottom half of the NFL offenses with their starting quarterback 7 times so far in 2022. And in each game, they've given up more points than their opponent averages. So in every game, on average, where the Chiefs faced a bottom half of the league NFL offense, they've given up an average of 6.4 more points per game than that team scored. So versus bad offenses, the Chiefs are giving up more points than that team averages, to the tune of 6.4 points per game. That's not good. But on the flip side of that, the Chiefs have played 4 games this year versus teams who are top 10 offensively. And I used the SRS offensive ranking. If you want more information on that, you can look it up. I've used it throughout the year. But in those 4 games where the Chiefs faced a top 10 offensive opponents, they've given up fewer points than that team usually scores. So in games where the Chiefs defense faced a top 10 NFL offense, They've given up 4.9 fewer points per game than those teams averaged. This is a Chiefs defense that, for whatever reason, shows up for a challenge. And why is it? Why is the Chiefs defense playing better against harder competition? This happened throughout the whole season. The worst offense shows up, they give up more points than that team usually scores. The better offense shows up, and they give up fewer points than that team usually scores. And why is that? One of the reasons that I came up with is it could just be chance. Small sample size, only 4 games for the good offenses and 7 games for the bad offenses. So that's one thing to take into account. The second thing to take into account is a competition. So the competition factor for the Chiefs defense. I believe this is a Chiefs defense that is designed, and maybe not even designed, that is constitutionally configured where they show up whenever they're given a challenge. I think that the fact that the Chiefs have played better defensively versus better offensive teams really bodes well for their chances in the playoffs. They're going to see their best competition in the playoffs, and this defense throughout the season has shown when the tough gets going, then they show up. When they're given a hard team to go up against, they play their best. And what are the playoffs? You're going to be facing the best teams, the best offenses, and you want a team that's primed and ready to show up defensively and offensively. So this Chiefs defense is laying the foundation throughout the season for a playoff push. This is a Chiefs defense that I believe is going to play their best football at the end of the year. And the third item could be scheme. So there's a couple different ways I want to go about this, but you would think that a Chiefs defense, if a Chiefs team knew that, okay, well, this week we're going up against a subpar offense, maybe we have a little slack, we can kind of keep some of our plans for the postseason tucked away. We don't have to put all of our cards out on the table when we're facing the Denver Broncos, when we're facing the Houston Texans. We don't have to show all the defensive looks that we plan on using later on in the year. They're not showing their hand for the teams they're going to face in the playoffs. This means that I think the Chiefs team schematically has left a lot under the table that hasn't been put on tape that they're going to be willing to do going into the postseason. I thought that last week's matchup versus the Seahawks was going to be a strong testing point, a strong test for this Chiefs defense to see where they're at. I targeted this game several weeks ago for the Chiefs to be able to have this game where here's a good offensive opponent. Let's see where we are now. And the Chiefs answered that bell outstandingly. They answered the call outstandingly. They showed up, only allowed 10 points versus the Seahawks offense that had been playing very well throughout the year. I think that they held the Seahawks to something like 2 for 13 on third down. They were great on fourth down. They forced a key turnover. And this defense, schematically, I think, has a lot left on the table. And Spagnuolo has not been showing all of his cards throughout the year. This is a Chiefs team that's good enough to win, especially with the offense they have, without playing lights out defense. So maybe Spagnuolo has thought throughout the year, okay, well, I'm not going to show everything that I plan on doing during the regular season. I'm going to save my best stuff for the playoffs. And I think that's what's happening. I think that's why the Chiefs defensively have played worse against worse offensive opponents and better against better offensive opponents. I think that they've kind of maybe mixed up their scheme a little bit versus these better teams, played some ball control on offense, and then versus the worst teams, maybe they went a little more simplistic. So schematically, I think this Chiefs defense may throw some interesting wrinkles for us to see during the playoffs. I think that they're holding back a little bit, and that's a great thing. I think that as of last week with the Seahawks game, this Chiefs defense is ready for the playoffs. I think they had a great test versus the Seahawks. They've got the Broncos next week, and then they have the Raiders, which is another test. So they might show a little more versus the Raiders for one more game to kind of tweak things a little bit defensively to get them ready for the postseason. But as of now, I am bullish on this Chiefs defense playing their best football in the postseason, and I think that's what's going to play out. I think that from Harry Mills' comment earlier, I'm more on the side of people lifting Spags up on everyone's shoulders at the end of the year, uh, where he's done a great job, as opposed to the defense falling apart. I'm very I'm feeling much more strongly that this defense is going to do its best in the postseason, as opposed to having any kind of collapse. So this Chiefs defense is playing well versus good opposition, and I think this is a really good sign for the playoffs. So that's what I got to say about the Chiefs defense. Before we go any further, what are your thoughts on the Chiefs defense? Do you think they've been leaving things on the table? Do you think they've been hiding their cards a little bit throughout the season versus worse opponents? And do you think that they're going to play the best football in the playoffs? If so, leave a comment. Let me know in the comments. And if you like what you see here, as always, make sure that you like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, so we're getting closer every day, but we need your help. So now that we've gone through that, I want to talk about Coach Reid's grade versus the Seahawks. And there are several things that I liked in this game. One was that 0 turnovers. The Chiefs have been having a hard time taking care of the ball. They won the turnover battle in this game. They picked off a pass from Geno Smith, and they didn't lose the ball at all when they had it on offense. This is the team you want to see in the playoffs take care of the ball, because if they do take care of the ball, they're going to be very hard to beat. The team only had 5 penalties for 39 yards, which isn't a perfect game, but it could have been a lot worse. Maybe it was because Carl Cheffers wasn't reffing the game. Who knows? There were a couple penalties by Joshua Williams on defense. He had 2 plays back to back, I think, where he gave up a couple plays on the back end. One of them was, I think, was holding. Another one was pass interference. And if you notice, they put Jalen Watson in the game after he had those problems. So continue to see this defense take its lumps, especially with the young secondary. But as far as total penalties go, not too bad. The Chiefs' offense was fairly pedestrian by their standards throughout this game. They had 5.8 yards per play and were 3 of 11 on third down. Throughout the year, they've been about 50% on third down. So a couple of those go another way. And maybe the Chiefs' outcome or point total for this game where they scored on offense would have been much higher. But speaking of the offense, I thought they were very balanced. This is what I really want to see from Coach Reid. They had 28 pass plays and 22 rush plays. So that's 44% of their plays were run plays. And this is big for the playoffs because earlier in the season and maybe earlier in Mahomes' career, there wasn't a lot of attention that defenses were giving to play action. If you've watched throughout the season, now the Chiefs have Pacheco. He's running the ball very well. They're more open to running the ball, and teams are having to prepare for play action. And Mahomes in play action has been really good down the stretch. So having a rush attack that actually is being utilized by the Chiefs play callers is a good thing because it opens up play action and opens up those passes down the field. And right now, this Chiefs offense, as it's made up, if they continue to run the ball the way they have, this is going to be a hard team to stop, come January. Once it gets colder and colder. This is a Chiefs offense that is really clicking right now and schematically are playing some of their best football of the whole season. So this emergence of Pacheco has been just a wonderful thing for this Chiefs offense because it makes defenses honor that run game. And the more Coach Reid sticks to it, the more they have to worry about, okay, is Pacheco going to run here? Is this actually a pass or is it a handoff? So it really helps in play action, really helps bring those safeties down, make the linebackers honor the running lanes, make them honor the rush plays. And so I really have enjoyed watching this progress through the season where Pacheco has become more and more of a catalyst for this Chiefs offense, forcing defenses to keep an eye out for him. So really good things going on there. I thought the defense in this game, as mentioned before, was tremendous. Only gave up 10 points to one of the best offenses in the NFL. So kudos to them. Kudos to Spagnuolo for getting the test right this week. And then I thought the team played complementarily. So you heard Mahomes during his post-game interview. He was talking about how the defense was playing well, so he decided to hone it back a little bit. And this is what the Chiefs needed as a team in this game. Mahomes didn't need to go and go gangbusters and win the whole thing, put it all on his shoulders. Let the offense help the defense and let the defense help the offense. And special teams also played well in this game too. I like seeing Tony back there receiving punts. He seems to be pretty sure-handed, and he's got a little wiggle to him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up breaking one for a decent gain on one of these punts here soon. So complimentary team football. The team played well together. Mahomes was complimentary of the defense. The defense did their job. This was a really good, complete team victory where the team did what they needed to do. They handled business. And all in all, I thought it was a wonderful performance from the team as a whole. So I give Coach Reed a 96 out of 100, which nets him a nice A. So wonderful job by the Chiefs this week versus the Seahawks. With that said, what are your thoughts on this game? You think an A is good for Coach Reed versus the Seahawks? What do you think of my hat? It is Christmas time after all. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas with your families. This is the best time of the year, in my opinion. And the Chiefs are playing their best football of the year right now, in my opinion, as well. This team's really coming together. The defense finally showed me what I wanted to see. I'm very happy. So thank you, Coach Reed, Chiefs defense, for this wonderful Christmas present you gave me whenever I watched the game on New Year or Christmas Eve at noon. So with that said, make sure, as mentioned before, you like, comment, share. Maybe next week you'll be the fan shout out. But without anything else to say, that's all I got. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Gridiron Lines. This is Gary McKenzie signing out.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.